My name is Agent Elise Morgan, and this is the story the FBI tried to bury along with everything that remained of me. Before becoming a federal agent, I was an evolutionary biologist. My life's goal was to understand the tree of life, its lost branches, and the species that disappeared without a trace. I never imagined that this would lead me to the heart of one of the greatest cover-ups in modern history. It was a cold November night in 2002 when I received a call at 2:37 a.m. The voice on the other end was deep, controlled, and direct. There were no formal introductions, just instructions, an access code, and a clear order. Report immediately. Bring only the essentials. Don't tell anyone. When I arrived at the designated location, a remote military installation in the Cascade Mountains, Washington State, I realized something was profoundly wrong. Helicopters hovered overhead, spotlights pierced the darkness, and armed soldiers patrolled the perimeter with a tension I had never witnessed before. This was not standard protocol. It was military panic disguised as efficiency. Colonel Hayes greeted me at the entrance. His face was pale, his eyes red with fatigue and something else, fear. Genuine fear. He led me through underground corridors illuminated by emergency lights. The air was thick, metallic, heavy with something my body recognized as ancient danger, but my rational mind refused to acknowledge. We arrived at a room reinforced with bulletproof glass. Inside, military doctors worked frantically, and in the center, on an adapted surgical stretcher, was something that defied everything I knew about biology, evolution, and reality. A body, enormous, covered in thick, dark hair, humanoid hands, but with long fingers and thick nails. The feet were enormous, more than 50 centimeters long, and the face? The face was humanly impossible, and at the same time undeniably familiar. It was a Bigfoot, a Sasquatch, a creature that should only exist as legend. Folklore, a story to scare children and entertain sensationalist documentaries. But there it was, real, tangible, bleeding. Its chest rose and fell slowly. It was alive, wounded, agonizing, but alive. When Bigfoot opened his eyes and stared at me, I felt something no FBI training could have prepared me for. A mixture of panic, empathy, and recognition. It was as if, at some deep level, I knew that this being wasn't just an object of study. He was someone with consciousness, with memory, with a history. And in that moment, looking into his eyes, I realized I was about to uncover a secret that someone out there was desperate to silence. I approached the stretcher slowly, while the doctors recoiled as if expecting an explosion. Bigfoot breathed with difficulty, a deep, moist, almost choked sound. His chest rose and fell unevenly, and it soon became clear why. The wound on his chest was inconsistent with any known animal attack. I reached out and asked for a laser scalpel to remove some of the necrotic tissue, but even before touching the wound, I realized something impossible. This was no ordinary cut. The wound had perfectly linear edges, as if someone had used a surgical instrument of extremely high precision, the kind of cut that only experimental military equipment could make. There were no tears, scratches, or bites. There were no natural irregularities. It was human work. Someone had deliberately and calculatedly opened the creature's chest. The collarbone was cracked, but not dislocated. The ribs had been pushed apart and then forced closed, as if the goal was to access something inside and then cover it up. It was like an incomplete surgery, hastily interrupted. He escaped from someone, I concluded, and that someone knew exactly what they were looking for. The Colonel pursed his lips and led me to an adjoining room where 3 screens displayed thermal helicopter footage captured the previous night. The image showed the dense forest of the Cascade Mountains, Several human figures moved in formation using infrared sensors and long guns. They weren't American soldiers. They weren't wearing identification. They were professional hunters, mercenaries, and they were systematically hunting Bigfoot. The video showed the moment they captured this specimen and began some kind of invasive procedure in the field. But something went wrong. The creature reacted, escaped, wounded, and ran through the forest until it collapsed from blood loss. "How long has this been going on?" I asked, my voice trembling with anger. The colonel hesitated before answering. "Officially? Never. Bigfoot doesn't exist, but unofficially, there are records of capture operations dating back to the 1950s. I looked again at the agonizing creature on the other side of the glass. It wasn't a legend. It was a real, intelligent species, and it had been secretly hunted, studied, and eliminated for decades. What did they want to find inside it? I insisted. The colonel pulled a brown envelope from a locked drawer. It was marked with a red stamp. "Project Goliath, top secret." "That's it," he said simply. They wanted to confirm something that was discovered more than 50 years ago. Something about their origin, and about ours. My blood ran cold. I picked up the envelope with trembling hands and began to read. And what was written there would change everything I thought I knew about human evolution, about our history as a species, and about what? Other forms of intelligence had always been walking alongside us. The paper trembled between my fingers, not from its physical weight, but from the historical weight of what I had just read. With each sentence, I felt my scientific background, years studying evolution. Primates, hominid ancestors, tremble like a house of cards about to collapse. The document began with a date, March 15, 1954. It was an official report signed by a general whose name had been redacted. The title was direct and brutal: Project Goliath, Biological Analysis of Captured Specimens. My heart raced as I read the first few lines. After 6 months of observation and 3 successful captures, we concluded that the so-called Sasquatch, or Bigfoot, are not, as previously assumed, wild animals of limited intelligence. They are advanced hominids with cranial capacity comparable to Homo erectus, but with unique physical characteristics that suggest an evolutionary branching parallel to our own lineage. Parallel evolutionary branching. The words echoed in my mind. The document continued, detailing anatomical analyses, brain measurements, behavioral observations. There were hand-drawn diagrams showing bone structures, comparisons with human skulls, and those of other primates. And then, a sentence that took my breath away. The specimens demonstrate structured vocal communication with repetitive patterns that suggest rudimentary language. They were observed using simple tools and transmitting knowledge between generations. Conclusion: they are not animals. They are a species of intelligent hominid that evolved in parallel with Homo sapiens, possibly diverging 500,000 years ago from a common ancestor. I had to sit down. My legs couldn't support me anymore. 500,000 years. An entire evolutionary line following a different path from ours, but arriving at the same destination: intelligence, consciousness, culture, and the government knew. Since 1954, maybe even before. "Keep reading," said Colonel Hayes, his voice heavy. I turned the page and found the final section of the report. The tone had changed. It was no longer scientific and objective. It was cold, political, calculating. "Do you believe the government is actually hiding evidence about Bigfoot? Comment below what you think, and if you've ever had a strange experience in the forest, share it with us." Final recommendation. The existence of this species represents a significant threat to the established social order. Public knowledge that another form of humanoid intelligence coexists with us could destabilize fundamental religious, social, and political structures. Furthermore, their presence in territories strategic for the exploitation of natural resources complicates economic development plans. My stomach churned. I knew what was coming next even before I read it. Approved protocol. Permanent containment through 3 coordinated fronts. 1. Absolute public denial. All evidence will be discredited. 2. Capture and secret scientific study of specimens. 3. Population reduction through habitat elimination and, when necessary, direct elimination of individuals that pose a risk of discovery. Direct elimination. They were talking about genocide, a secret, systematic genocide carried out over decades against an intelligent species whose only crime was existing in the wrong places. I looked at the colonel, my eyes burning with tears of rage. "You knew all this?" He shook his head. "Not with that level of detail. My mission was only to contain the wounded specimen. But now I understand why there's so much pressure to keep this secret." He pointed to another document in the envelope. "And there's more. Read the one from 1964. With hands trembling with indignation, I picked up the second document. And what I read was even worse. The 1964 document was an audio transcript between 2 research directors of Project Goliath. The dialogue was short, but devastating in its implications. I read it aloud, my voice breaking at some points. Dr. Morrison, the results of the preliminary genetic sequencing are ... disturbing. They share 98.7% of their DNA with us. More genetically related than chimpanzees. Dr. Whitmore, does this confirm the hypothesis of recent divergence? Dr. Morrison, yes. We estimate the separation occurred approximately 400,000 years ago. They are not a completely different species. They are our cousins, our family. I stopped reading. Cousins, family. It wasn't just a parallel species. It was literally part of our family tree. Colonel Hayes watched my reaction in silence. I continued reading, my voice now only a whisper. Dr. Whitmore, and what are the ethical implications? Dr. Morrison, it's obvious. If they are genetically so close, if they demonstrate intelligence, language, culture, then technically they have rights. Human rights, perhaps. Or something equivalent. Dr. Whitmore, and what? Did the Department of Defense decide? A long pause in the recording. Then, Dr. Morrison, they decided it's more convenient for them not to officially exist. Easier to deny than to protect. Tears streamed freely down my face now. The colonel placed a hand on my shoulder. Agent Morgan, I know this is difficult to process, but you need to understand the whole situation. It's not just a few isolated individuals. There's evidence of a small but stable population scattered across several remote regions. I stood up abruptly, almost knocking over my chair. And how many were killed? How many were eliminated over the years to protect this secret? My voice was too loud, almost shouting. I didn't care. The colonel lowered his eyes. I don't have exact numbers, but the reports I've seen suggest dozens, maybe hundreds over the decades. I looked through the bulletproof glass at Bigfoot, dying on the stretcher. He was watching us, his intelligent eyes processing the scene. Did he understand? Did he realize we were discussing the fate of his entire species? Do they have names? I asked suddenly. The colonel frowned, confused. What do you mean? Names, I repeated. Do they call themselves something? Do they have their own identity? Or are they just specimens and targets in their military documents? The colonel hesitated, then picked up another piece of paper from the envelope. In 1998, CIA agents managed to interrogate a specimen captured alive. He learned basic English after months of exposure. He said they call themselves Saska letters A. It's a word in their language. It means something like shadow people or hidden people. Saska, they had a name for themselves, a cultural identity, a self-perception as a people. This wasn't just a biological species, it was a society. An alternative civilization that chose the path of the forest while we chose the path of the city. And we were exterminating them. systematically, secretly, without the world knowing. I need to talk to him, I said, pointing to the wounded Bigfoot. I need to try to communicate. Before we begin this insane story, leave yrti if you enjoy government conspiracy stories. And subscribe to the channel with notifications activated, because this story will keep you up at night. The colonel seemed alarmed. Agent Morgan, he's in critical condition. It could be dangerous. He's sentient, I interrupted. He's conscious. And if he's going to die, at least he deserves someone to try to understand him as a person, not as a lab specimen. I was still processing the weight of the documents when the sound arrived. A metallic thud coming from the main hallway. It wasn't an explosion. It was something more deliberate, more controlled. It was the sound of metal being ripped away with calculated brute force. Colonel Hayes raised his weapon immediately, his military instincts taking over. Everyone to defensive positions, he ordered. The soldiers guarding the entrance took their positions, weapons pointed toward the dark corridor. I instinctively moved away from the door, but kept my eyes fixed on the bulletproof glass that separated the operating room from the corridor. The wounded Bigfoot on the stretcher suddenly lifted his head, his eyes wide. He knew what was happening, and for the first time since he'd arrived there, I saw something beyond pain and fear on his face. I saw hope. Desperate hope that someone would come to save him. Another bang. Closer. Louder. The emergency lights flickered. One of the medics dropped a surgical instrument, the metal clinking on the concrete floor. The silence that followed was suffocating, broken only by the wounded man's gasping breath and the electric hum of the lights. And then we heard it. A sound that made my blood run cold and my heart race simultaneously. It was a roar, but it wasn't like the animal roars I knew from documentaries or fieldwork. It was deeper, more resonant, more communicative, as if it carried meaning, intention, a message. "They're here," whispered one of the soldiers, his voice trembling. "My God, they're here!" The colonel approached the reinforced door, tactical flashlight in one hand, weapon in the other. "How many?" he asked over the radio. The reply came shrouded in static. "Thermal sensors detect ... at least 3. No, 4. "My God, they're enormous ... double quotes, and then the main door of the facility gave way. It wasn't ripped off with blind violence. It was manipulated with surprising precision. The security bolts were bent. The reinforcing structure was pushed aside. And through the opening, for the first time, I saw a Bigfoot standing there, in all its impossible magnitude. It was gigantic. Easily 3 meters tall, with shoulders as broad as a gorilla's, but an upright posture like a human's. Its body was covered in dark brown fur, longer on its torso, shorter at the extremities. Its hands were massive, with long, articulated fingers, but it was its eyes that captivated me. Deep, dark, intense eyes. They weren't animal eyes. They were eyes that thought, that planned, that felt, and behind him, 2 others, smaller but equally imposing. An organized trio, moving with a synchronicity that suggested complex communication. They didn't invade and destroy everything. They came with a specific purpose: to rescue the wounded man. The leader of the trio stopped at the entrance to the observation room. For long seconds that seemed like an eternity, he and Colonel Hayes stared at each other through the bulletproof glass. Human and Sasquatch, 2 representatives of intelligent species, separated by 500,000 years of divergent evolution, but connected by common ancestry. And then, the leader did something no one expected. He slowly raised a hand, palm facing forward, in a universal gesture that transcends species and cultures. A gesture of peace, of non-hostile intent, a plea for understanding. At that moment, watching that impossible creature make a profoundly human gesture, I understood completely and irreversibly. They weren't monsters. They weren't animals. They were people. Just ... different. This is the story the CIA doesn't want you to know, but I'm going to tell you everything in the next few minutes. Comment. I want to know if you're ready for the truth. Colonel Hayes hesitated, his weapon still pointed, but his expression shifted from threat to something more complex, confusion mixed with curiosity. The Sasquatch leader kept his hand raised, motionless, waiting. There was no aggression in his posture, only cautious determination. The bulletproof glass separating the observation room from the operating room where the wounded man lay. The message was clear. I want to see him. I need to know if he's alive. One of the doctors, Dr. Chun, bravely stepped forward. He nodded and made an inviting gesture, indicating that the leader could approach. The colonel positioned himself strategically, ready to intervene if necessary, but not actively blocking. The leader Sasquatch took 3 long, powerful strides, each causing the concrete floor to vibrate slightly beneath his weight. He approached the glass and pressed both his enormous hands against the cold surface, gazing at the wounded man on the other side. And then something extraordinary happened. He emitted a sound. It wasn't a roar. It wasn't a grunt. It was an articulate, complex vocalization, modulated in frequencies that rose and fell in a clear pattern. And although I didn't understand the words, if they were words in the formal linguistic sense, I unmistakably recognized the structure of intentional communication, and the wounded Bigfoot on the stretcher answered. His voice was weak, broken by pain, compromised lungs, and massive trauma, but it was definitely an answer. Not random, not reflexive. It was dialogue, conversation, an exchange of information between 2 individuals who shared a communication system. Dr. Chun watched, fascinated, making mental notes. I was paralyzed, witnessing something that official science denied was possible. Non-human language, structured and complex, unfolding before my eyes. The leader turned to us, to the humans watching, and then he did something even more surprising. He pointed to the wounded man, then placed his hand on his own chest, and finally pointed to the exit. The nonverbal communication was crystal clear. He's mine, my family, my responsibility. I need to take him. The colonel stepped forward, with deliberately slow and exaggerated movements meant to be clearly interpreted. He pointed to the medical equipment, then to the visible wound on Bigfoot's chest, and finally made a gesture of denial. His message: he is badly injured. Without medical attention, he will die. The leader watched for long seconds. Then, surprisingly, he nodded. A small but unmistakable nod. He understood. More than that, he was willing to trust. Or at least, he was willing to risk that trust because the alternative, trying to forcibly remove the wounded man, would probably kill him anyway. But then, before we could fully process this unlikely truce between species, the facility's communication system crackled loudly. A metallic, distorted voice echoed through the speakers. Attention. Goliath protocol activated. Definitive containment team will arrive in 20 minutes. Repeat. Goliath protocol activated. Evacuation of non-essential personnel authorized. Blood drained from my face. Goliath protocol. I had just read about it in the 1964 documents. It wasn't rescue protocol. It wasn't containment for study. It was elimination, extermination. The Sasquatch leader didn't understand the English words, but he perfectly understood our panicked reactions. His eyes narrowed, and a low, menacing roar began to grow in his chest. Time seemed to have stood still. On one side, Leader Sasquatch, clearly aware that something was wrong, his muscles tensing in anticipation of action. On the other, nervous soldiers holding their weapons lowered but ready. And in the middle, we myself. Colonel Hayes, the medics facing an impossible moral choice. "Colonel," one of the soldiers whispered urgently, "protocol dictates that we evacuate immediately. The containment team is authorized to use lethal force against anyone who interferes." Colonel Hayes remained motionless, his jaw clenched. I saw the internal struggle unfolding behind his eyes. 30 years of military service. 30 years of following orders without question. 30 years of absolute loyalty to the system. But now, confronted with the reality that following orders meant being complicit in the murder of sentient beings, his military conditioning was collapsing. "Agent Morgan," he said finally, his voice low but firm in the documents, "does the Goliath protocol specify exactly what happens when it's activated?" I nodded slowly, my throat tight. "Complete elimination of all specimens present, destruction of biological evidence, erasure of records, and I hesitated, and elimination of unauthorized witnesses if necessary." The silence that followed was heavy as lead. One of the doctors, a young woman named Captain Rodriguez, let out a muffled sob. "Are they going to kill us all?" she whispered. "Are we unauthorized witnesses?" The colonel didn't answer, but his expression confirmed her fear. I looked again at the Sasquatch leader, who was watching our exchange with intense attention. He didn't understand our words, but he clearly perceived the growing despair. And behind him, the other two, Sasquatch approached protectively, forming a barrier between the outside world and the wounded man. A decision crystallized in my mind. Clear, inevitable, morally inescapable. I turned to the colonel and spoke with a conviction that surprised even myself. "Colonel Hayes, how many emergency exits does this facility have?" He looked at me, immediately understanding what I was suggesting. "Agent Morgan, I'm talking about doing the right thing," I interrupted. "Is there an emergency exit or not?" The colonel clenched his jaw. The internal struggle continued. But then he looked at the wounded Bigfoot on the stretcher, then at the leader who had made that gesture of peace, then at his own soldiers who clearly did not want to participate in the massacre. And something changed in his eyes. "There's an evacuation tunnel on the 3rd underground level," he said slowly. "It was built during the Cold War as an escape route in case of a nuclear attack. It comes out 3 kilometers from here, inside the forest. Officially, it's deactivated. Nobody knows it exists anymore. So, we have a chance," I said. "We have 18 minutes to get everyone out of here before the ultimate containment team arrives." "This is treason," one of the soldiers protested weakly. The colonel turned to him, his voice sharp as a razor. "Treason is murdering intelligent and innocent beings because someone in Washington decided it's inconvenient for them to exist. I served my country for 30 years, but this ... double quotes, he gestured to the Sasquatch and the wounded man. "This is not serving my... This is being complicit in genocide." Silence. Then, one by one, the soldiers nodded. Captain Rodriguez spoke. "I'll prepare the wounded man for transport. We'll need a mobile medical equipment carrier if we want to keep him stable during the evacuation." The colonel picked up his radio and began giving false orders, creating confusion in the communication system to buy time. Then he approached the bulletproof glass, looking directly at the leader, Sasquatch. With careful and deliberate gestures, he pointed to the wounded man, then to the door, then upward symbolizing outside, and finally to the leader, making an inviting gesture. The message was clear. We will help them escape. Together. The Sasquatch leader watched the colonel's gestures intently. For a moment of unbearable tension, he remained motionless, processing, evaluating, deciding whether he could trust those armed humans. Then, slowly, he nodded, and he turned to the other 2 Sasquatch behind him, emitting a series of complex vocalizations. They responded immediately, moving with coordinated efficiency. "Emergency door," the colonel ordered. A soldier typed in a code, and the armored door separating the observation room from the operating room opened with a pneumatic whistle. Leader Sasquatch entered first, moving directly to the stretcher where the wounded man lay. With surprising gentleness for a being of that size, he placed a huge hand on the wounded man's forehead, a clearly affectionate and reassuring gesture. Dr. Chun approached cautiously. "We need to keep him connected to the monitors during transport," he explained, knowing the leader wouldn't understand the words but might grasp the intention. He pointed to the medical equipment, then to the injured man, making connecting gestures. The leader observed, then nodded again. He understood. More importantly, he was willing to allow humans to continue receiving medical care. Trust was forming, fragile but real, born of mutual need and recognition of shared sentience. 12 minutes, the colonel announced, checking his watch. "Let's go." He led the group toward a service staircase hidden behind an unmarked door. The descent was tense. The metal steps groaned under the weight of the Sasquatch. Every sound echoed menacingly, potentially alerting others in the facility. We reached the third subterranean level. The air here was even more humid, colder, smelling of mold and decades of neglect. The colonel used his flashlight to illuminate the path through a narrow corridor filled with rusty pipes and dead electrical wires. At the end, a heavy metal door covered in rust. "This is the way out," he said, typing a code into an old panel that surprisingly still had power. "It leads straight into the forest. Once out there, you're on your own. We can't go with you." I looked at him, surprised. "What? Why not?" "Because someone needs to stay and create confusion," he explained calmly. "Buy time, divert attention. If we all disappear, they'll know immediately what happened and send tracking teams. But if some of us stay, report that the specimens escaped on their own after a coordinated attack. That will cause enough bureaucratic chaos to give you a few hours head start." Before I could protest, Captain Rodriguez touched my arm. "He's right, Agent Morgan, and you need to go with them. You're a biologist. You understand more about the wounded man's medical needs than any of us. You have the best chance of keeping him alive." My heart sank. These soldiers were sacrificing their careers, possibly their lives, to do the right thing. "You will be charged with—" "I know," the colonel interrupted. "But I'd rather face a court-martial for doing what's right than live the rest of my life knowing I was complicit in genocide." He forced the heavy door open. On the other side, total darkness and the distant sound of dripping water. "The tunnel is 3 kilometers long," he continued. "It runs in a straight line. There are waypoints every 100 meters that glow in the dark. When they come out the other side, they'll be in protected forest territory. From there, the Sasquatch probably know better than any of us how to disappear." The Sasquatch leader had carried the wounded man in his arms as if he were a child, despite his enormous weight. He stopped at the tunnel entrance, looked at the colonel one last time, and did something extraordinary. He placed his free hand on the colonel's chest, held it there for 3 seconds, and then stepped away. A ritual gesture, a thank you, an acknowledgement of a debt that transcended species. And then they entered the tunnel. I followed them, carrying an emergency medical kit that Dr. Chun had prepared. The last thing I saw before darkness engulfed us was Colonel Hayes, standing at the entrance, saluting. Not to military authority, but to the idea that doing the right thing sometimes means disobeying unjust orders. Before continuing with the escape through the tunnel, I need to go back in time, because the story I'm telling doesn't begin on that night in 2002. It begins 4 years earlier. In 1998, when I was only 30 years old and working not for the FBI, but for the CIA as a scientific consultant specializing in biological analysis. It was that year that I participated in something that would change the course of my life forever. The first formal, documented, and prolonged interrogation of a Sasquatch captured alive. He had been found in Oregon, severely wounded after a confrontation. Unlike the 2002 case, this one did not manage to escape. He was captured immediately, and transported to an underground CIA facility in a location I can never reveal. When I first entered the interrogation room, what I saw left me completely breathless. He was sitting, yes, deliberately seated in a specially constructed and reinforced chair with high-strength titanium chains binding his wrists and ankles to metal rings welded into the concrete floor. But what shocked me wasn't the brutal physical restraint. It was his gaze. He watched me with a complex mixture of resignation, deep sadness, intellectual curiosity, and something else that took me days to identify: evaluation. He was studying me as much as I was studying him, measuring my character, deciding if I was a threat or a potential ally. "I'm Agent Sarah Carter," I said, forcing my voice to remain firm and professional. "I'm here to ask some questions, to try to understand you and your people." He didn't answer immediately. He just kept watching me with those deep, dark eyes that seemed to see through all my defenses. And then, in a deep, hoarse but unmistakably articulate voice, he said something that literally froze my blood and made my scientific world crumble. "You ... speak. I ... understand. Portuguese." He was speaking broken Portuguese, grammatically simplified but perfectly understandable. My brain completely shut down. How could a supposedly primitive creature, living isolated in remote forests without regular contact with human civilization, learn a complex human language? The answer came from him, slowly, with obvious difficulty, but with enough clarity to devastate me emotionally. Many years, listening, observing, humans ... talk a lot. All the time. Noise, words. I listen, learn. He had learned simply by listening. That he possessed the necessary neurological areas equivalent to Broca's area and Wernicke's area in humans. That he had the cognitive capacity for grammar, syntax, semantics. He was no less intelligent than us. He was just different in outward expression. Over the following weeks, I held dozens of long and progressively deeper sessions with him. Each conversation revealed additional layers of complexity. I discovered that his name was Terrana, complex guttural sound that roughly translated as "he who walks in silence" in his own native tongue. I discovered that he had an extended family, that he had been brutally separated from them during the violent capture, and that the trauma of this separation weighed on him as visible physical pain. I discovered that the Sasquatch had individual names, stories passed down orally through generations, specific cultural traditions about appropriate behavior, and even something that appeared to be a rudimentary spiritual belief system. And I discovered something even more devastating and politically explosive. They were dying. The population had fallen drastically in recent decades, and Terran knew exactly why. Humans ... killed the forest. "The forest killed my people," Terran said in one of the sessions, her voice heavy with a grief that transcended species and linguistic communication. "Now ... only darkness remains." The words were simple, grammatically basic, but the emotional meaning was devastatingly complex. During my time, the way a child absorbs their native tongue, through prolonged immersion and dedicated attention. If he could learn Portuguese in that way, I asked a question that meant that his brain was fundamentally capable of processing complex human language. "How do you see us?" He remained silent for long minutes, his deep, dark eyes fixed on some distant point, as if accessing ancestral memories or formulating concepts difficult to translate into human language. When he finally answered, his words were laden with a wisdom I hadn't expected to find, a perspective that fundamentally challenged my unconscious anthropocentrism. "Humans ... young, very young, like puppies running without looking. They break everything. They don't see. They don't hear. They just ... take." He paused, searching for additional words in his limited Portuguese vocabulary. "We ... ancient ones. My people, walked the earth long before human. We knew silence. We knew how to listen. Humans, only speak, never listen. His analysis was so precise, so devastatingly accurate, that it made me shudder. He wasn't being cruel or judgmental. He was simply describing what he had observed over decades, watching our species from afar, from the safety of the forest shadows. "And what do you want from us?" I asked, my voice almost a whisper. Taryn looked me straight in the eyes with an intensity that made me feel completely transparent. "Nothing. Just peace. Just space. Just forget about us." But then his expression changed. It became darker, more hopeless. But humans never forget. They always want to know. They always want to catch. They always want to control, like a child catching a butterfly. They kill trying to hold on. And it was then that he told me something the CIA had desperately tried to suppress from official records. Something they tried to make disappear along with all the documents of my interaction with. Taryn revealed that the Sasquatch were not as primitive as we arrogantly assumed. They had consciously chosen to live simply. My people have observed humanity for a very long time. 1,000. No more many thousands of years. We see you build cities, make machines, wage war, make noise. Always busy, always wanting more. He paused, then said something profound. We chose not to do that. We chose forest. We chose silence. We chose to be, not to do. It was a deliberate philosophy of life, a conscious cultural choice to prioritize contemplative experience over material production, integration over domination, sustainability over expansion. They had observed the trajectory of human civilization and decided they did not want to follow that path. Humans waste time making things, machines, houses, roads, always busy, never lives, never feels true sunshine, never feels true rain, never feels true forest. My people, live, feel, that is more important than machines. But the most shocking revelation, the one with massive scientific and philosophical implications, came when I asked about its evolutionary origins. Taryn closed his eyes, as if accessing generational memories passed down orally through countless generations, an ancient story, passed down from old to young, many generations. He began, his voice taking on an almost ritualistic tone. A long time ago, we and humans, were brothers. Same origin, same beginning, but we separated. Two different paths. He opened his eyes, looking directly at me. Humanity chose fire, chose sharp stone, chose war, chose to dominate. We chose forest, chose silence, chose peace, chose to be a part of, not the owner. This confirmed everything the scientific documents from Project Goliath suggested. The Sasquatch were genuinely a parallel branch of the human lineage. Our evolutionary history had diverged hundreds of thousands of years ago, following different paths, but maintaining intelligence, consciousness, and sentience. And they had chosen, culturally and philosophically, a radically different path from ours. Going back to the tunnel escape in 2002, we ran for 20 minutes through the damp darkness, our flashlights casting dancing shadows on the moss-covered concrete walls. The distant sound of explosions reverberated through the layers of earth above us. The ultimate containment team had arrived, and by the sound, they weren't wasting any time on subtlety. The Sasquatch leader carried the wounded man in his arms with surprising gentleness, each step carefully measured to minimize further trauma. The other two, Sasquatch flanked them protectively, their senses clearly sharper than mine, detecting things I couldn't perceive. Finally, we spotted natural light filtering through a metal grate at the end of the tunnel. Exit, freedom, survival. The leader carefully laid the wounded man on the ground and, with impressive brute force, ripped the rusted grate from its hinges. Metal groaned and gave way. Fresh forest air surged into the tunnel, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. It emerged into a small hidden clearing, completely surrounded by dense vegetation. The full moon provided enough light to see. I quickly checked the wounded man's vital signs, but stable. He would need further care, but he had a chance of surviving if the Sasquatch could keep him warm and protected. The leader approached me one last time. He placed his right hand over my heart, just as he had done with the colonel. He kept it there for 3 heartbeats, a ritual of gratitude, of recognition, of connection between 2 intelligent species that night had chosen cooperation instead of conflict. And then he spoke. Not in Portuguese or English, but in his own language, complex guttural sounds that flowed like strange, ancient music. Though I didn't understand the literal words, the emotional meaning was crystal clear. You saw us as people. You risked everything. We will not forget. They vanished into the forest with the same supernatural ease with which they had appeared, carrying the wounded man. In seconds, it was as if they had never been there. Only the nocturnal silence of the forest remained, broken occasionally by the distant sound of helicopters and human voices shouting orders. I knew I needed to move too, to disappear before they found me. But before I left, I looked one last time at the tunnel entrance, thinking of Colonel Hayes and the others who had stayed behind, sacrificing everything to do the right thing. In the following weeks, I lived in hiding. The FBI contacted me. They wanted answers. They wanted to know what had happened at that facility. I told an edited version enough to satisfy immediate curiosity, but omitting crucial details that could lead hunters back to the Sasquatch. Colonel Hayes was quietly retired with full military honors, a tacit agreement for his cooperation in keeping certain details classified. The soldiers who helped us were transferred to distant posts scattered around the world, isolated from each other. Dr. Chun simply disappeared. To this day, I don't know if by his own choice or by other means, and I became a controversial figure, the FBI agent who claimed to have discovered the truth about Bigfoot. My career was systematically destroyed. I was labeled unstable, unreliable, potentially delusional. I lost access to classified information. I was transferred to insignificant administrative work until I finally requested voluntary resignation. But I don't regret it, because I saw the truth. I lived the truth. And now, finally, I've decided to tell it, because there are things more important than careers, than reputations, than personal security. There are truths that need to be told no matter the cost. The Sasquatch are real. They always have been. And we, as a species, need to decide, are we finally going to acknowledge their existence and protect them? Or are we going to complete the silent genocide we began decades ago? Years have passed since that night. I built a new life away from the spotlight, working at small universities under a pseudonym, publishing research in obscure journals that nobody reads. But I never stopped searching for answers. I never stopped documenting. I never stopped investigating. And what I've discovered over the years has confirmed my worst fears. Project Goliath never ended. It just became more sophisticated, more hidden, more efficient. The cover-up and elimination operation of the Sasquatch continues to this day, carried out by agencies that officially don't exist, funded by black budgets that never appear in public audits. There are genetic extraction farms where captured Sasquatch are kept in captivity for years, their cells harvested repeatedly for research that will never be published. There are tracking teams equipped with cutting-edge military technology, using thermal drones and artificial intelligence to map the movements of family groups. There are sanitary removal protocols, a horrific euphemism for murder whenever a Sasquatch is sighted too close to areas of real estate development or natural resource exploitation. Why? Why this massive and coordinated effort to deny, suppress, and eliminate evidence of its existence? The reasons are multiple and complex, but fundamentally they boil down to power and control. First, there is the religious and philosophical question. The existence of another species of intelligent hominid challenges fundamental narratives about human exceptionalism, about our supposed uniqueness as bearers of a soul or consciousness. Imagine the theological chaos if the Vatican, the Islamic world, and the major Eastern religions had to reconcile their doctrines with the existence of another sentient species that clearly does not fit into their cosmologies. Secondly, there are massive legal implications. If the Sasquatch are recognized as an intelligent and sentient species, they would technically have rights, territorial rights, rights to exist, possibly something equivalent to basic human rights. This would create a legal nightmare for land development, resource extraction, and infrastructure construction in remote forest habitats. Third, there is the issue of information control. For decades, the government categorically denied the existence of Bigfoot. To admit now that not only do they exist, but that authorities knew about and actively concealed this information would destroy public credibility on a catastrophic level. This would raise questions. What other things are they hiding? What other lies have they told us? Fourth, and perhaps most ominously, there is military and scientific value in studying the Sasquatch in secret. Their unique physiology, superhuman strength, extreme endurance, ability to thermoregulate in cold environments, superior night vision all have potential applications in soldier enhancement programs, performance-enhancing drug development, and classified genetic research. I gained access to leaked documents detailing experiments performed on captive specimens, pain tolerance tests, prolonged sensory deprivation, exposure to chemical and biological agents, forced collection of bodily fluids, brain tissue biopsies on living individuals. All these atrocities justified by arguments of national security and scientific advancement. It's pure horror, Mengele-esque in its clinical cruelty. And it's happening now, today, in underground facilities scattered across the country, funded by your taxes, authorized by elected officials you'll never meet, run by scientists and military personnel who have somehow learned to switch off their empathy. But here's the truth that will never die, no matter how many people try to bury it. We are not alone. We never have been. And perhaps, just perhaps, if we learn to listen instead of dominate, to coexist instead of exterminate, there will still be time to rewrite the ending of this story. Now, at 56 years old, knowing that I will likely be found and silenced for telling this publicly, I make my final confession. This document you are reading has been carefully distributed to multiple sources, uploaded to servers scattered around the world, and sent to investigative journalists in dozens of countries. It cannot be completely erased. My real name is Elise Morgan. I was an FBI agent for 12 years, specializing in forensic biological analysis. In 2002, I was summoned to a secret military facility in the Cascade Mountains, where I confronted the truth our government has been hiding for over 70 years. Bigfoot are real. They are intelligent. They are sentient, and they are being systematically exterminated. If you're rooting for them, share this video. The more people know, the harder it is to hide the truth. I know many will dismiss this account as fantasy, as the ravings of an unbalanced woman. I anticipate the coordinated attack on my credibility that will come as soon as this is published. I already know what they will say. She was fired for mental instability. There is no corroborating evidence. It's just another internet conspiracy theory. But for those with eyes to see and the courage to question official narratives, I leave this. Look for patterns. Look for unexplained forest accidents in remote areas. Look for military exclusion zones with no apparent justification. Look for primate scientists who suddenly changed careers or disappeared. Look for consistent sightings over decades in the same geographic regions. The Sasquatch exist. They are our evolutionary relatives, separated from us by about half. A million years of divergent evolution. They chose a different path: integration with nature instead of domination, contemplation instead of consumption, sustainability instead of unlimited expansion. And we, in our arrogance and fear, have decided that their existence is too inconvenient to tolerate. Taryn, the Sasquatch I met in 1998, told me something I'll never forget. When the last of my people dies, the forest will weep, and humanity, will realize too late that it has lost its mirror. A mirror that shows how things could have been different. He was right. The Sasquatch are more than just another endangered species. They are an evolutionary mirror showing that intelligence doesn't have to lead to environmental destruction, that consciousness can coexist harmoniously with nature, that there are multiple ways of being human in the universe. And we are destroying this mirror because it shows us uncomfortable truths about our own choices as a species. My call to you, reader, is simple but radical. Ask, question, investigate. Don't accept official denials without evidence. Pressure your elected representatives. Use freedom of information laws. Support independent investigative journalism. Protect remote forest habitats. And if you live near forests where sightings have been reported, Washington, Oregon, Northern California, the Appalachian Mountains, Western Canada, consider being a silent guardian. Don't seek encounters. Don't trespass, but respect, protect, preserve. The Sasquatch do not need our salvation. They have survived for millennia without our intervention. What they need is for us to finally leave them in peace, for us to recognize their right to exist without being hunted, studied, captured, or eliminated. This is my truth. This is my confession. This is my final testimony before they find me and silence me. But the truth, once released, is impossible to fully recapture. The Sasquatch are real. And it is up to us as a species to decide, will we finally honor their existence? Or will we complete the genocide we started and live forever with this shame on our collective conscience? The choice is ours, and time is running out. Agent Elise Morgan, November 17th, 2025, guys. If this video gets 1 OK likes, I'll make a part 2 revealing other secret CIA operations. Let's go.